RHOBH alum Crystal Minkoff finally tells the story of how she lost 14 friends, thanks to Sutton Strack. We'll never forget at least two memorable moments with Crystal Minkoff on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. She was the one who pointed out Crystal's ugly leather pants and the fact that the brunette beauty lost 14 of her close friends. Sutton threw that friendship exodus in Crystal's face during one of their many altercations. Andy Cohen questioned her about it at the season 12 reunion. But he didn't get a satisfactory answer from the second season housewife then. However, now that she's no longer on the show, Crystal is ready to spill the tea. The 41-year-old shared the story with Cynthia Bailey during an episode of their podcast. Here's how RHOBH alum Crystal Minkoff lost 14 friends. Crystal talked about the friendship drama on the Humble Brag podcast after having us wait years to find out the real tea. The claim that she lost 14 friends is very true, and it seemingly stemmed from jealousy over snagging a diamond on RHOBH. One of her friends wanted a spot on the Beverly Hills franchise for quite some time, but when she got the opportunity, her husband didn't want her to do the show. Crystal advised her that if her family was against it, she shouldn't do it. A few years later, Crystal was chosen to join the RHOBH as the first Asian American in the franchise. I told my friend, who wanted to do it, and the conversation, while it wasn't awful, it wasn't great, shared Crystal. It was, why is it good enough for you and not me? The former Bravo star said she explained that their situations were different because she had the support of her husband, Rob Minkoff. After that, we hung up. And we had a nice text back. And then I never heard from her again ever, said Crystal. Never spoken once again. That was about 4.5 years ago. Crystal says her ex-friends tried causing drama with her castmates. Crystal revealed that the drama didn't end there because the rest of her friend group also dropped her over her RHOBH casting. There was a day in which I see a photo of our group of friends all together, and I'm like, why am I not there? And I called every single one, and no one answered, said the mom of two. Crystal said she wasn't just iced out. Her former friends also tried to jeopardize her relationship with her castmates by deeming them and making up lies. Check out the Humble Brag podcast below. For months, rumors swirled around Crystal Minkoff, the once quiet yet sharp-witted alum of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. While the show is no stranger to drama, nothing piqued fan interest more than the cryptic hints Crystal dropped during her final season about a falling out that cost her 14 friendships. Finally, after years of speculation, Crystal decided to open up in a heartfelt interview with a major publication, laying bare the truth of what really happened. The story was more complex and heartbreaking than anyone could have imagined. It was a tale of loyalty, betrayal, misunderstandings, and the toll of fame on personal relationships. The backstory: life before fame. Crystal began by taking readers back to her pre-Housewives days, painting a picture of a tight-knit group of friends who had been her second family. They were the kind of friends who celebrated birthdays with themed brunches, texted daily about everything from parenting woes to new Netflix shows, and took annual trips that Crystal referred to as soul retreats. We were like sisters, Crystal explained. We went through marriages, divorces, miscarriages, and career changes together. It wasn't just a group of friends, it was a lifeline. But then RHOBH came knocking. Crystal admitted that joining the show wasn't just her decision, it was a collective one. When I got the offer, I called my closest friends immediately. I said, what do you think? Should I do this? Almost all of them said yes. They thought it would be fun to see someone they knew on TV. We even joked about how I'd give them shout-outs in my confessionals. Crystal had no idea that this decision would be the beginning of the end for her friendships. Fame changes everything. The first cracks in the foundation appeared before Crystal had even finished filming her debut season. While she was still navigating the intricacies of reality TV, including its producers and behind-the-scenes manipulation, her friends were seeing a different side of her life. Things that were private suddenly became public, Crystal said. The show wanted stories, and sometimes that meant sharing things I wasn't comfortable with. I made mistakes in how I handled it. There were times I overshared, and my friends felt blindsided. One incident, which Crystal described as a turning point, happened during a girls' trip featured on RHOBH. A seemingly offhanded remark Crystal made about a private disagreement with one of her close friends ended up airing on national television. While the comment didn't seem significant to viewers, it struck a deep nerve in her inner circle. I called her immediately after the episode aired and apologized, Crystal recalled. But the damage was done. She told me she couldn't trust me anymore. And when you lose the trust of one person in a tight-knit group, it ripples out. Misunderstandings and mistrust. As Crystal's star continued to rise, so did the tensions. While some friends tried to support her, others grew resentful of what they perceived as her newfound priorities. Crystal admitted that she wasn't always present for her friends in the ways she used to be. There were times I missed birthday parties or girls' nights because I was filming or attending events. I'd send flowers or FaceTime, but it wasn't the same. They started to feel like I was choosing the show over them. Crystal also revealed that gossip played a significant role in the breakdown of her friendships. Stories began to circulate within the group, stories she claims were exaggerated or completely false. Some friends believed she was leaking information to the press, a claim she vehemently denied. There was this idea that I was selling them out for a storyline, which couldn't have been further from the truth, she said. But once that seed of doubt was planted, it grew. It became a game of telephone, and by the time the story got back to me, it was unrecognizable. The final straw. Crystal described the moment everything came to a head as a disaster disguised as a dinner party. After months of tension and passive-aggressive texts, she invited her closest friends over for a night of reconciliation. She hoped they could clear the air and move forward, but the evening quickly spiraled out of control. It started off fine, Crystal said. But then someone brought up something I'd said months ago, and suddenly it was like an avalanche. People were shouting, crying, accusing me of things I didn't even know about. Crystal admitted that she made mistakes that night. She was defensive, emotional, and overwhelmed. She also said things she regretted, including calling out one friend for a private issue in an attempt to prove a point. I was desperate to make them see my side, but all I did was make things worse. By the end of the night, half the group had walked out. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was swift and brutal. One by one, Crystal's friends stopped answering her calls and texts. She was removed from group chats, unfollowed on social media, and eventually blocked by some. Life after loss. Crystal admitted that losing 14 friends in such a short period was devastating. She fell into a deep depression and questioned everything about herself. I felt like a failure, she said. I kept replaying every conversation, wondering what I could have done differently. It was like mourning a death, except it was 14 funerals. Over time, Crystal began to rebuild her life. Therapy helped her process her feelings, and she leaned on her husband, Rob, and her family for support. She also forged new friendships, though she admitted she's more cautious now. I'm still grieving the friendships I lost, but I've also learned a lot about myself. I've learned how to set boundaries, how to communicate better, and how to let go of relationships that aren't serving me. Looking ahead, Crystal ended the interview on a hopeful note, saying that while the experience was painful, it also taught her the value of resilience. Sometimes you have to lose people to find yourself, she said. I'll always miss the friendships I had, but I'm at peace with how things turned out. I know I did my best, and that's all I can do. As for whether she'd ever return to RHOBH, Crystal was non-committal but open to the idea under the right circumstances. If I went back, it would be on my terms, she said. I've learned too much to let anyone else write my narrative again. For fans, Crystal's story was a poignant reminder that behind the glitz and glamour of reality TV, real lives are affected. And for Crystal, it was a chance to reclaim her voice and set the record straight, on her own terms.